Well, let's open with a quick word of prayer. Dear Lord, we ask you to guide whatever I say and help us to and be able maybe to put this book into. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Chapter 7, does that sound right? Hospital. Richard, well, why did Richard go to the hospital?
I think
Somebody
you got
had
it.
mentioned to him
Yeah.
that it was, had mentioned that it was a place that he could get in and out of the rain.
That's
He
it.
was not. Needed to get in and out of the rain.
There was a lobby there and it was warm and dry. Until closing time probably, and probably the guard did not hassle you. Oh, what else? And Page, Mike. Richard makes the comment. He has 3 children, quote, I'm none. Richard's children. Should they have done more to time of bringing me?
The short answer is yes. Yes, they should.
Yes.
I don't think he goes into the detail of why are they abstained. I mean, what did he made it so, broken? I mean, and it's a long time since I read this book, but I don't know, does he really go into why
Well,
the relationship is strained?
Some of them worked for him. And he had his company and everything.
And he explains at least 2 of these kids later on in the reading,
Yeah.
He said
separated from.
at one point, what, that it was inconvenient. to Take care of him. But he also says at one point that, when he had the business and they were working for him and when they were was their hero. That kind of comes out in a chapter later on, which I'm not going to get to. Some of them I definitely do want to get to. About
I don't know where it is, but there was a little. The night before he was kicked out of his house, I forget what they call that. Father-in-law was there, and then
You can sit here.
his father-in-law said to him, Richard, I don't feel sorry for you, as he was getting on home. So that just seemed like there was some stress there.
and it doesn't go into detail.
No, it doesn't
It
say.
kind of leaves you hanging on these issues, but it's something to think about. Anyway.
Don. So, sorry, I came in at the tail end. In my mind, how he burned his relationship. And I suspect there was a lot of arrogance when he was at his pinnacle. Look at me, and that was a big fall for him.
Yeah, in the book, he does. Before the collapse of that family relationship.
Yeah. But he didn't delve into it. I think he took them down because. First, they had their finances kind of. Business and I think there was probably a lot of anger and fear. Was humble at the least at the beginning.
Well, is it he blames the loss of his business on?
Econ.
Yeah, a little more.
Those computers,
Hmm?
and he failed to adapt to the times.
Okay, exactly. The internet and the rise of technology. Evidently did not, some small businesses have adapted to the change in technology and some don't. Is
Yeah, at the point we're reading Robert's book, we tend to empathize with. I think your point is right, that he taught his family he were homeless and not making their own way.
Speaks to modeling too. If you're on the rise, you might be rising on the, the backs. It speaks to me also the dynamic in your family, what you, I don't know. Just go through difficulties and just my own in-laws and my family too. You look at what happens, whether you fracture out. I honestly think he reaped at least, I mean, again, this is maybe just what he, what he valued during this period of time.
yeah, if we haven't been through something like this, it's a little to empathize maybe, but I don't know, it brings back through a divorce and wound up kind of in the situation that Richard was. And I was perfectly fine with that. Anyway, in the hospital, he encounters Marcia. You remember? Dying of cancer, or does it use the word terminal and dying?
She has to go to Fred Hutchins
Yeah,
in Seattle. Last resort, and she has to tell her husband, she's waiting to tell her husband.
He said it's a really good place. I
Yeah,
think he was trying to encourage her.
probably was looking for a clinical trial, which is kind of a, most often, not always. Last straw, last resort for the treatment. After he encounters Marcia and she shows him her family pictures in the chapel or in the hospital, then Richard finds a chapel. And
he finds a.
Chapel.
Yes.
he prays, he actually God would take him and let Marcia
Yeah.
live,
Yeah.
which
Sorry.
is for someone who
Mhm.
supposedly has lost their faith in God. I don't know, the it pops up again every now and again throughout the book. Makes it interesting and partly why we chose the book to and read and study. Anyway, unless questions on chapter 7, we'll go on to chapter 8. We encountered, well, the title of the chapter, I think, is Doctor Disease. Richard suffering from depression and he winds up getting help. Dr. Z and his nurse. Gosh. The nurse, I believe it is.
She was
Okay.
the kind nurse who had homeless in Colorado, and so she gives him some cash and says, stay in a good dinner and then go to the counseling appointment the next morning.
And on the
What she
physician,
said to Richard, this happened to my was very depressed, and she said he was a doctor. Jane's husband was a doctor. He home and ended up in Colorado, and some kind person there. Why Jane was giving Richard. Yeah,
yeah,
I think.
I think that's right, and being in her family lost track of the man, he was mentally ill and homeless, and, yeah, he
And it
didn't.
sounded like now got through that stretch and now he's back.
Well. Reminder that, mental illness can strike anyone. Profession and. From it, and, thereby the grace of God will lead, I guess. That, and I'm not sure how the trip to Walmart worked its way in there, except it seems in. Driving to Walmart because he needed something. What is she?
Well, it sounds like he had an agenda when he went in.
Don't forget the caramel corn.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, and,
Kenner's through the program,
Yeah.
but does he wind up buying anything?
no. I'll let somebody else.
Anyway, it's like he has a bone to pick with Walmart and is escorted out without having purchased what he think. Corn, which I think comfortable. Made it into his vest. Been there one way or another.
Could have happened today. He talks to this person. Well, it's no wonder that you can't afford to have health insurance and you can't afford to live. Look at these prices.
Well, let's go on to the appointment. Starts out with a psychologist, then he goes to a psychiatrist. Interestingly enough, and interesting what the psychiatrist was wearing. Did anyone else? The psychiatrist was dressed a coat and shoes and things that were very worn. Not what. How many years does it take? 12 years. To get to the point of being a psychiatrist. What
Well, I
you,
think what I found interesting was a psychiatrist, like, I don't know, in the county or whatever, that would take Medicaid patients. I know from experience, very few psychiatrists do accept very
well,
wealthy, I don't know.
probably, and some other physicians, specialists, and maybe even primary. Not just Medicaid, but Medicaid and Medicare both, just in profit or make anything, but most physicians still do take patients with Medicare. So Anyway. Oh, and he goes on, prescribed Zoloft. Most prescribed drugs out there, I believe. I presume at least at this time, it was not available in a generic or cheaper version. Oh, on my page 124, Richard describes his irreparable, possibly irreparable question mark. Is that the correct? And Nurse Jane. What was it? Quite a bit, almost out in her pocket, so that he could get a motel room, dinner. For the main things. Hamburger free. And anyway. The first gave him money, and now it's Nurse Jane giving him money, and there's that are not so poor that they helping hand. I would just assume skip chapter 9. There's something there if you had a question or.
I make a comment. Before we get building permits, I think those women. Because it's not your typical homeless person. White man who clearly is depressed. Or those women would have felt the same way about some drug addict.
Good point. Excellent. And
going to use it appropriately, because prejudiced or not, money, more than likely they will buy drugs with it. And I would rather give it a young drug addict clothes I think they need as opposed to money. I'm hesitant to give money to a drug addict. It. Maybe they felt like he would use it. And so, I mean, I don't think that I'm homeless drug addicts, but I am, my eyes are opened. Money, I rarely do that. Unless I can go with them and buy this, well, let's go buy it then, because I don't,
giving them food is one thing, giving them money is different. And, the government used to do that with welfare, and then they decided that. You've got to be pretty old to remember when food first used.
Oh, I go back further than that. Remember when you had to go to the township trustee and get a box of commodities? Surplus of, and that was the health program. And the county had a food stamps came out, people were appalled. What? What?
Almost anything.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was kind of a shift to move to food stamps.
Okay. So anyway. We move on, maybe skip chapter 9, which is nice, which was not a very good for him, which was too bad, but it's just the way it was, you know. You know, your lowest end of motels. Chapter 10 is off to the. He had visions of one flew over the cuckoo's nest, I think. Oh. Well, I found the quote on my page 134. Everything question mark. And then instead of trying to find it in my. I typed it out. But I knew, and I was sure the doctors also didn't have enough pills to cover every need. Was there a pill for regret? One pill to help you for love, kindness, grace, understanding. Family pill to restore the nectar or had never been tasted. Was there some drink or splash on for happiness? The depression coming out there a bit.
This is cool too. I wished I could capture the joy smell that will rolls in the grass. All four legs flailing in the air, wiggling, and rubbing. Da, 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 da. Put that joy in an aerosol can, I would just start spraying.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't say, just start spraying and just start off of it, but he didn't say that. That's my way of going there, I suppose. Anyway, also he says on a succeeding page, the elixir for the human soul. The nurse, psychologist, I guess, nurse, gave him a big hug. That sat real well with him.
Speak at a congregation that I served in Des Moines. Hundreds of people there at the event. And there's a woman there next to me that I had never. And during question and answer time, she began to share. Was had been very painful. And as she shared, author began walking toward her very slowly, came to her, didn't say anything, and then walked back. Had learned, I think, a lot of things.
Well, since you've experienced the guy, what else can you?
There's, I don't remember what he said. Good, I guess. But that part stood out. He seemed to be a person of compassion. And that I think he had learned a lot of things. That's just what but that one act was a compassion.
By the end of the book, he comes to faith. He comes back to God. Big change also, I'm sure. Oh, what else?
That psychiatric facility. That was. Is that like Western State or something?
It's at Recovery Center. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a Louisiana Bremerton. He mentions Western State as being locked up at night. But that's not where he was.
I have some to share if we have time. It's not with the book exact. I don't know how many happened to read this meditation. It was in our Peninsula Daily News on Sunday. Anyway, oh, let's see, he's going to, his name is Keith Dorwit. Don't always read his column, but I did. Anyway, he's going to volunteer at the. It's really kind of really what we're talking about. Winter is proving especially. And it's colder than usual. As you go about your business, think of. It is all too easy for us to ignore the unhoused as they sleep in doorways. Macklin commented on Facebook on the subject of human contact. This is the part I think it's good here. In isolation, a homeless man asked if I would just talk to him. Would need to keep his distance and that I would leave when my bus came. And we chatted for about 10 minutes or so. And this is the part probably one of the most meaningful things I have ever done. To talk more about how do we connect spirituality, give up some, oh, he's talking about Lent. Give up if that works for you, but consider this, maybe giving something to in your lives. Maybe there's a direction you can explore. Change everything. Anyway, it just really spoke to me on homelessness. I would like to see it.
Wanted to say something too. I give money directly to food bank. I carry a box of protein bars. And I know that I'm not feeding them for long, but I can look them in the eye, I can say hello and acknowledge their humanity. Because the guilt I live with when I kind of bear with that, you know, you have to find something that is meaningful, because I thought to be ignored and be considered.
And just 10 minutes, you know, we all have 10. I might be a little afraid, you know, as a smaller woman, older, to a person, but.
I do it for my car, generally, it's usually when I.
Oh,
maybe-
gotcha,
Or it's
okay.
often just far, like,
Okay,
you know, 10, 15
yeah,
feet,
sure.
it's usually not very.
Sure, you have to kind of judge the.
I shared this before, my mother, I think was on the edge of the homelessness her whole life, the Dust Bowl depression. She always had a heart, and it occurred to me why she'd done that too. She always carried stuff, and it was very active in her church. And she asked a man, you know, she knew him by name and said, "What would you like next time I see you?" And he said, "A can of ravioli." Ravioli with a spoon. And living in Alaska, I couldn't because things freeze. Because that was what I could carry to my purse, which was not that light, but the reactions you get sometimes. Pop lid, you know, dug in, so you can have some sweet moments too. But it's
Yeah.
Another thing, if you're having such a conversation or encounter, ask if they're aware of 211. That's a social network in the state of Washington, where the people answer can guide them to housing, food, they're at 211. Well, a lot of people new to the state, or even if they've been. So they're fumbling around in the street, counting on somebody else to tell them where to go. It is a great resource. It's funded through United Way and other.
Part of the problem locally and state in the country is there's just so little housing out there. It's for people with money. Was it you that talked about that a couple weeks ago? an apartment. And the cost of it,
Well, I don't know if we're gonna get into the next. It's the weirdo nurse, and there was two women on that property and. You know, suggest maybe you two women could put your state money together. Qualify for an apartment, we thought of that.
Yeah.
But they were in a really bad situation, they.
that's later on in that chapter,
yeah.
there's a.
But that's a odd experience of going to church also.
I'm sorry, again, I didn't.
That was, he had an odd experience going to that. Same chapter with.
Oh, the. Sold used cars and offered him a job, yeah, that's a future chapter too. Anyway, it says the title of the art.
He was a part of the homeless forum that 2 years ago. He's very involved with a homeless community. He's a part of St. Andrews, and they have allowed some park for trailers, cars, people living. I don't know if they've made that permanent or not, but for a period of time they did. To do the same.
Yeah, restrooms and things like that.
No.
People, there's a parking lot with restrooms. The Louders at that intersection, and they're obviously are living in their cars or pitching a tent.
Often we see that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't do. Walk by there, park there, and took off walking with the dog. They need, you know, there really needs to be a better place and organized. There,
They're trying to buy a piece of property. And they'll put up restrooms, shower. That may be last time.
Mhm, mhm.
well, the title of the next chapter is Andy the Reed. Who was psychiatrist I dealt with in 20. Who was it that talked about? There's a reason who keeps coming back. Guys, if you and Andy.
13.
My page 111.
Mhm.
The called a read.
Mhm.
What's your, have you found it?
Yeah.
Haven't found it. Well,
3 and 9.
okay. Anyway, I come up with it on my reader. I went ahead and typed. It's called a weed. See them every month or so. Sent here when they get in trouble with the rules. How they. This society is amazing. Every time they leave. Them again. We. Didn't, no. We don't. Don't expect them to live unless I. Somehow, they just keep coming back, like we between the rocks on. Full and persistent. So, anyway. Really interesting. What he finds C, E, and C go and find Andy water passed out, he's an alcoholic, but he doesn't give up. He, throw be in about as bad a shape as you can get, but the author describes him as beautiful. Well, anyway, he empty out of the rain and put him in the concealed camper. Camper on the back of his truck, that's style of really big, having owned one once. My wife and I were in this sliding camper, and it's Andy and cleans him up, gets him some clean, dry clothes. And what else is there? Another guy in the front seat. Renting the front seat. $10 a month. Yeah,
I thought this was interesting. I'm on 140. Yet more people in Bremerton recognize Andy than recognize the mayor. Cab drivers, all the different places. Everyone sort of loves him. Harmless.
In Griffith's show, Otis, the town drunk who would let himself into the jail.
well, yeah. Humorous on that show, but that's kind of what we're talking about.
Such a sickness,
Yeah,
and it's so easy to. Shape up. Whatever. They're so.
And it's a little bit difficult for us to. What? As far as I know, never been there. Anyway, the guy in the front seat was named Brian. Just because he was just out of jail. I'm just trying to find sponsors for people. To get out, they can succeed, but without a sponsor, what do they have? One set of. And that's about it. They give them $20 or something, but from their family, anyone else, and they're just homeless and. Do we know if people in the jails for shorter term? And that's pretty much the only difference, as far as I can tell, between the county jail and. Sentence, it's less than a year they spend it in jail, if it's more than a year. I'm curious if there's any. The county jail. Or are some of them just. Out. Especially if. Without help, they'll just go back to. Being in that. But I know there is some mental health counseling in the jail. What, not interviews, but years ago. So this guy, I'm thinking back now. Attended and was active, but he wasn't an actual speaker.
no, but he attended.
He was the brother or whatever from.
Yeah.
From the Lutheran church.
I mean, the homeless that are in jail are just our clients. And we'll say, hey, we haven't seen you for a while, yeah. And then they're back right out doing the same. The only good thing is if they've been in jail, they've been drug free during that time. And so sometimes they say, yeah, they'll come back and say, I really want to quit, and then send them on to, a drug rehabilitation place and things like that. I mean, so the jail just releases them right back to the street, and so at the time, they just go right back to how they were before. But again, the way their body feels after not being with drugs for 30 days or something like that. So that's,
You say that there is drug rehab available for homeless, broke people.
Reflections is really good as an outpatient, and then they are serious. I mean, there are treatment centers, we drive them across, down in Tacoma area, and they all take like Medicare and things like that. There are places to go, but
Are some of them inpatient?
yes.
Okay,
And that, we just had a client that just did 30 days of inpatient after being in jail, I think, and he was dry for a while. So jail has that. If anything else, from drugs. So,
Is the Oxford Health?
yeah,
They've proven his sobriety or not?
right.
Lindsay, I never can. Right,
Monaghan,
say it again.
Monaghan.
Monica,
The
a
Mon-
member. Congregation who is a doctor, she's now full-time in the jail and will be helping. Whether it's mental health or drugs, so they can go right from. So it's really a boom to have her full-time.
one of the reasons we did that series of talks was that I had heard for reelection, like I could say how many people. I mean, I didn't think of the county as being that big, but the
Yeah.
jail is big. And he said exactly how many of them were mentally ill and would be at. There were not beds available for them.
I was friends with a mental health counselor who served at Clallam Bay. He was out there 2 or 3 days a week, and with my program in Tor Angeles. And he said that 96% of the people at Clallam Bay are diagnosed. That's huge.
Buckmaster and his wife do a mission. Women's prisons, or maybe men's too, but women's, they talk. How many of them were mentally ill, and he said. All depressed over their lives. And their prison. This was a state prison for longer. Yeah, that's pretty sad. And there's some counseling for them there, and I guess we don't. How much, but quote was interesting, we are not born drunk. Two places in that chapter is a question. Maybe Richard expressed it also, what motivates C? Yes, even with what little gas he takes in people. The street out of the mud puddle and into their home. That what motivates C? I mean, he's a real character. when Richard goes into the best friends with, all of the homeless people.
I think he. See. And he could connect with people and he had a sense. And respect for others, and I. Observe firsthand how people with so very little can be so. Is absolutely amazing.
That point has come up before and maybe comes up again and again through this book is that. Poor people that are the generous ones and not the well off.
I don't think it's on their radar sometimes. The wealthier people.
Sometimes. You know, just in my goings and comings around. I don't see. Homeless people.
Yeah. Today. Pushing. The grocery cart. Well, I don't know how many layers of clothes, just that how. And it's a steeper street and it was taking. We've never seen this situation before.
Well,
On Lincoln,
Oh, yeah.
just coming to church today. Yeah.
Yeah, and one kind of suit, I'm assuming he was on, or somebody standing in that same area.
Yes, I thought that was Colonel Sanders.
Was he holding a bucket of chicken? Yeah, he was impressive.
today you could see them in Seattle just. See lots of homeless people living in tents or makeshift. Of whatever kind, and you didn't used to see that.
One thing
It's
that is
fairly new.
proven. Shelters don't always allow people to stay there. They can come in at night and sleep there and then. Go. So where do they go? There's a church in Ketchikan, that started a day shelter. And when they first started, it was like, day. It's a place to come. It's a warm place with lights and flush toilet. And the guys can sit there and they can talk to each other or read a paper or whatever. Ring around on the streets. What a mission that is.
I don't know if anybody else rides bikes on a Discovery Trail, if you walk far enough, there's. To town.
Oh,
and
yes.
It's worrisome.
Yeah, I totally agree. To Meridian, Idaho, near Boise, and I visited there a couple. Don't seem to have the homeless, at least in view where I was, why that might be in Idaho.
Harsher winters.
I just noticed it.
Maybe they're not as receptive.
Yeah,
think
I
there's
just
something to say
Spokane,
that.
Idaho doesn't have. The benefits for anybody that Washington State has. And so people know.
Wage is way low. I think it's $7 and something because my grandson worked. It's not much.
Yikes.
Yeah, the homeless people, I mean, the ones in need. They know that they get a lot more just crossing Washington State, you know. Part of Lane to Spokane, and
Right.
a lot
Right.
more benefits.
Oh,
My personal experience, my son, I think I might have mentioned, we adopted him. Childhood schizophrenia from the time he was 4. And he finally got arrested. In the Spokane County Jail, and I had not realized that and I was NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, and psychiatrist, and he was on 6 medications. He still is,
Well,
but Spokane sent him directly over to Sacred Heart, and they have that the Sacred Heart Hospital connects with the jail. So he 1.5 months at the hospital, and they treated him, checked his meds. It was a locked facility, but when he was every Friday at 3 p.m., the judge jail system would have a hearing to decide if he was ready to be released each week. Well, he, like, here I am stressed out every week. I'm calling. If you release, what will happen to him? And she told me they will. And if there's an opening, they'll drive him there and let him off. And so then, of course, I'm freaking out that he's just gonna be let out with what he was on his back, and, so, was lucky. Now he's at Eastern State Hospital, so he got sent from Sacred Heart to Eastern, and I'm still there 1 whole year, and they're looking for residents for him, but most people just can't. The social workers and doctors at Eastern are so overworked, and they're so half of what they used to have, that they can't even get back to you to do the normal things. It would want to go into social work these days. So it's just,
Well, it's not, it takes a special person to do jobs, and maybe today even more jail guards. Anyway, we're about out of. I'll read 1 or 2 more things that I did. My page 151 that says, I didn't feel sorry for Andy. And Andy didn't need judgment or pity, mine or anyone. Was somehow able to take the good and let the bad pass. Live a life without learning how crucial that can be, or how to. Doubtless, there was a lesson. So it was a hard one for me to embrace. But more than Andy, it was Steve, whom I couldn't quite understand. His way of pulling out of the ring. What made a man do that? Even my family wouldn't. Even clean and sober. It was inconvenient. Again, what motivates Steve, but we talk more, but in order to get through the book, chapter 16, which is just awful, and in order to cover everything, I think you can just skip that one if you're reading ahead. But I think next is the chapter that I haven't got notes on it yet, but I think it's the chapter. There's Karen in it, and there's some parallels there between Karen and Richard. But I definitely wanted to talk about a little bit. Logan and go to the wastewater role. Anyway. What, 12, 13, 14. You will maybe 15. We got 4 chapters done today, and we might read maybe 4 next month. So Also the softball game,
Oh.
especially.
That was my favorite.
Too, in its own way, and, to talk about or think about maybe. And then towards the what leads Richard back to go. So I do want to get some of those end of the book chapters in as well. So we may have to skip this meditation on death. After this class, we have one coming up on dying and death. Or like the plan.
Yeah, Matt will have one or two sessions also.
Okay. So Matt,
Jeff,
Sam.
Jeff and Diane.
dying and grieving after this class, and after that. We study and couple people. Look at who. That should be good too. We started with a prayer. Let's go ahead and dear Lord, we thank you for this time when we can freely meet and important issues, important for us, important for our society. All Christians. So we ask that you guide us and be with us in the. Amen. Okay. The sound must be okay. No, I.
Okay.
Got it.
Oh,
See, I mean, Deborah, my
kind of worried that I was.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Stan, I don't mean to be funny, but is there a book you're gonna use for
No,
just discussion?
yeah, they're,
I mean, like when my spouse died. Or different pamphlets at different times, at some program, I forget, but. Pretty helpful, but yeah, I went to.